Welcome everyone to Inform New Hampshire. My name is Dean and this is my co-host Richie to the right of me, and we are here to inform you of things you won't see or hear in the mainstream media. We're very concerned with the direction of our country, certainly in the long-term look of over 100 years or 100 and let's say 15 years when the feds took over the currency, the international banking cartel that have a privately owned company called the Fed, which prints your currency. We're very concerned with the direction it's gone. It's been devalued from $1 down to about 2 cents. So your purchasing power with the dollar is about as good as 2 pennies was 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, your 2 pennies today would have bought nothing, and 100 years ago, a dollar would have bought. I think it's the other way around. All right, so let's go with Jerry DeLamus. He's still in jail, and Susan DeLamus, we haven't talked to her lately, but I don't think there's any updates in that regard other than he was moved to the East Coast here. So we're happy for that. Susan is able to visit him and talk with him, but he is still in jail, and it's very unjustified. Of course, the judge out there, Judge Navarro, is just a runaway criminal judge that makes up the rules as she goes, which is what they all do anyway. So anything you want to say about that, Richie?
Just that Adolph Navarro said the Constitution doesn't matter, or don't bring it into this courtroom. If the law doesn't matter, what the hell does? Anyway, yeah, we continue to ask you to support Jerry and Sue DeLamus. You know, Jerry's got 87 months in jail, which he certainly does not deserve for standing up for his rights and your rights. So if there's any way we can help him out with your prayers and with finances, please do so. Go to freejerrydelemus.com and contribute what you can. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. And you're probably sick of hearing it from me, but I'm going to continue saying it every week because he's an innocent man suffering in jail and he doesn't belong there. Well, that's it with Jerry.
We've got an update
on, help me out here.
I'm trying to think of it myself.
Oh, well, we wanted to do a little update. We were outside the Hillsborough County Superior Courthouse last week. It was September 5th, and it was Jury Rights Day. So we gave out literature trying to inform the people about jury rights. The jury is the most powerful tool you have in the legal system. The decision of a jury can't be overturned by anybody, not a judge, not anybody, regardless of what Judge Navarro happens to think or not think, whatever the case may be. It was surprising to me how many people didn't want to take the information. It's free. It's a little trifold. You know, read it at home, whatever. But we're going to give out the information in other areas. Maybe leave them inside stores if they allow us to do that, so people can have them. We're simply trying to educate people, that's all. Just educate people. Let them know that they are what is important in this country, the people. There's nothing else more important than that. The other thing I wanted to mention, one among many, is the National Liberty Alliance. I'd like to call attention to them because they're the only organization that I'm aware of in America that is attempting to get back common law, which is the law of the land. And when I say the land, I mean the land jurisdiction. That is the jurisdiction that's owed to us, we the people. And if we aren't going to fight for it, then we are not going to get it. So I would ask you to join the National Liberty Alliance. It doesn't cost anything. No one's going to hound you for any money. However, they do need money. If you can contribute $5, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can donate, I'm sure they'd appreciate it. So I would ask you to try to help them out. We may be able to win this thing. There are international pressures being brought to bear on the banking industry because they suck. I wasn't going to say that word, but they suck.
Is that a technical term?
Yes, it is.
Right.
I'll break that down later in the show.
Okay.
But no, there's international pressures. You got Donald Trump in the White House trying to fight. There's a civil war going on in the White House between Trump, who's trying to do the right thing, I believe, and people that were dumped there through the 3 previous administrations who were fighting against him. And I'm only giving you my interpretation, but I will say this. Some of the things we're going to mention today are factual. documented factual. You can look it up yourself. And if you don't share this with members of your family or friends, regardless of how they feel, you're not going to wake up your fellow Americans. The only one's going to know this is you. You're keeping it to yourself and you're not sharing it. Something might tip somebody in your family, in your neighborhood, because we need the people of America to wake up. This is a serious matter. Freedom is at stake. Your liberty is at stake. Do you want to be a slave to the central banking system the rest of your life? Or do you want to experience true freedom? I can envision true freedom, and we don't have it. You're a debt slave. We'll prove that in a few minutes here, but you're a debt slave to or fodder for the machine. You shouldn't want to be that. And if we can, we'll point you to a few things that you can look up for yourself. Take the time to do it. Skip a movie. Don't watch your favorite TV show, Killing the Zombies, or whatever the hell TV shows are on there. I don't watch TV, but you'll learn something new, and you'll find out that things aren't what they appear. They've established a matrix over the past 100, 150 years. It goes back to the Civil War with the subtleties that they've used against us. And I'm not being over-dramatic. It is a matrix that you're living in. You think you're free. You're experiencing freedom. You're not. You're a debt slave for the machine. And we'll hopefully prove that for you today.
Yes, we will. So, where are we starting? First of all, let me just say I don't have an update for, I want to give an update for the relief effort by Granite State 3%ers for the hurricane victims down in Houston. And there will probably be some relief effort also for Florida. I don't know the details of that yet. However, if you have an interest in sending some supplies or dropping them off, you can do so with Iggy Falcone. That's Falcone, Iggy Falcone. He's at 726 East Industrial Park Drive, 726 East Industrial Park Drive, Manchester, New Hampshire, 03109-5600. If you need to call him, his phone number is 603-969-7265. So there you have it.
Well, that's for dropping off supplies and/or money?
Yes. So cash is always helpful with regards to purchasing
specific things.
Gas.
Yeah.
Well, gas mainly for driving the trucks down there. The trucks and the trailers are, last year they were donated, and we hope we're working on that again, get donations from people, as well as supplies that people need. You know, toilet paper, personal care products, believe it or not, tampons for women, and then food and water are critical. And of course, anything that anyone can do to provide even the smallest amount of supplies, it all builds up and it all helps. So if you're inclined to do so, please contact Iggy. And Stevie D is the founder of Granite State 3%ers. He's also heavily involved in this and creating it and making it happen. And Stevie D, you can find him on Facebook. Unfortunately, my phone, I didn't have his information in there. I just have his number. So I gave you Iggy's because Iggy has a place of business where he's accepting supplies. There's a garage there that they can, a very large garage where they can house the supplies until it's time to drive down to Houston, which will be the first or second week of October. That's the plan. So
Yeah, just let me interject.
Yep.
It's Stevie D3, which is capital III, not the number 3, but III. Stevie D3, and you should find him on Facebook.
That's on Facebook. Okay, yeah. Okay, so getting into you being a debt slave, which Richie said earlier, and we sort of have a point-by-point thing we want to go through. Now, I know we've talked about this in the past, and we don't mean to beat a dead horse, and that's a weird colloquialism, isn't it, that we're going to beat a dead horse? But we just want to really lay this out and take you through the system that you are involved in but don't know it, and you are a slave to without knowing.
It's not, just let me jump in, Dean. It's
Yeah.
not, in our mind, it's not beating a dead horse. We're encouraging you to pass this on to people in your family. Look, I've got people in my family who think I'm obsessed with this, what's going on. And I can live with that. I continue to send them stuff. If they watch it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. If they tell me to stop sending them stuff, I listen to them and I won't do that. But I'm trying to get to as many people as I can. If you're wondering what's going on in America, we're trying to present you with things that are instrumental in helping you to understand. We're not giving you the whole picture because we need a 24-hour show to do that. I mean, it's really massive. But we can help you get on the way and find out things to help you understand what's going on. And that's our only mission, is to say, okay, here is the tools that you need to make your own decision and to find out what's going on. That's why we're going over this, and that's why every week we say, please share this. It's very important. It's time now, 2017, to get this done.
All right, so starting out, we want to encourage you to get a dictionary and take a look at, if you go to etymology, which is the study of words, and type in or look up in the dictionary the word person, and you'll find that person, the first definition is a human being. The second one is a corporation, right?
It's a corporate fiction is what it is, but it's a corporation. So what the government has done to you, and if you don't believe this, I'll tell you, take out your driver's license and look at your driver's license or your birth certificate, either one.
Or your bank statement, or your medical
credit
bills.
Card bill, anything.
Credit card, yeah. Look at them all.
It'll say, I say a driver's license because that comes from the state. That'll be in all capital letters. Now, I know none of us spell their name with all capital letters, but a corporation is all capital letters. Look at some of the corporations out there that you know of or you deal with. They'll be in all capital letters. That's called capitis diminutio maxima. And you can look that up and find out that that's exactly what it is. It's a diminishment in status from the person, the human being, to the person, the corporate fiction. So you're a corporation in the eyes of the government. You have no rights. You're owned by the United States government, more specifically the Federal Reserve banking system. And they do what they want with you. Look at it, and if you don't believe that, you got Jerry DeLima sitting in jail for doing nothing, standing up for his rights. And I defy anybody to say he did anything else. He never hurt anybody. He never did anything other than stand up for his rights. And if he said something that someone didn't like, tough, this is supposed to be America, you got the right to speak freely. As long as you're not hurting people, what's the difference? Secondly, Robert Lavoie Finicum was murdered by our government, and no one was brought to justice for that. And everybody saw it on the video. He was shot with his hands in the air 6 times and murdered. That's because he's a corporate fiction in the eyes of the government, and who cares? Their attitude is, he's not even a person. A human being person. These are things you have to check out. Don't take my word for anything. Please, check it out. Check out the word person in the dictionary, or etymology, as Dean said. And the other thing is make sure that the all caps letter, the all caps name, is capitis diminutio maxima. Check that out. That'll verify what we're saying.
Now, as we're getting into this, Richie, if I could get a little support from our staff here at the studio and show the screen. On Amazon, you'll find that there is a book called Meet Your Strawman. And there it is on the screen right now. Now, that book, look, it's all of $5.30, and you will often find some other books associated with it. This one right here, Common Law, Community Training Manual, and there's a few others that are usually there, the UCC book. But these books are real cheap. They're very simple and very straightforward. Common Law Handbook for Jurors, which is a great book. The UCC Connection, How to Free Yourself from Legal Tyranny. Those are great books. Very cheap, very easy to order from Amazon, and I'm going to be reading you a few quotes from this today. So thank you, studio, for that.
Yeah, one other thing, Dean, on those, you can find some of that stuff on the Strawman and the UCC on YouTube in video form, and It doesn't cost anything. If you don't have the money to buy these books, I know some people don't out there, so feel free to go to YouTube and just type in Strawman.
So Strawman is, I like Richie's description. You tell me that again.
Straw man is
Shadow,
the
you said.
corporate fiction.
No,
that they've
I like your
established.
term that you use, shadow.
No, right. And
Yep.
what I like to refer to it as, because when you say straw man, people don't understand. And I like to say that it's your shadow. It's attached to you, but it isn't you. So when they send you a bill, like if the court sends you a summons, it's in your all caps letter. And what they're doing is they're sending that summons to your shadow. As stupid as that might sound, it's to your straw man, but I'm saying it's a shadow because it isn't being sent to you. That isn't how you spell your name, number one. You use upper and lowercase letters. And secondarily, they're sending it to you as the corporate fiction. But you look at it and you say, oh, that's me. That's how I spell my name. You just assume everything is fine. It isn't fine. They've tricked you into thinking that that's you. It isn't you. So for you to go for that well, we all do it, so please don't get me wrong. I've done it my whole life. I get something in the mail, it says my name, I got to respond to that. Well, it's not even you that they're sending it to. It's the corporate fiction they created. When you go into court, the judge will say, is this you? And they'll tell you your name, John Smith, and you're going, yeah, that's me. No, the judge is tricking you. They're not even doing it lawfully. They're tricking you into being in the courtroom. They don't have jurisdiction over you, but you don't know that. So you volunteer, and as soon as you say, yep, it's me, you just gave them jurisdiction over you. And please, there's so much out there that you can look up on YouTube and find this out. One of the things, and I'd like to say it now in case we forget it, is what happened to the Constitution on YouTube. Watch that. The kid does a really, really nice job of explaining what happened over the years. It's been 150 years since 1860 or 1861 in the making, and actually technically longer than that.
So a little bit diving into what is this straw man or shadow, as you say. Well, it all started when your parents had a happy event and you entered the world. You don't know exactly when that was because you were not aware of the days of the week, the months, or even the year it was. Even after some months have gone by, you're still not aware of these things, but by that time, your straw man had already been created, and it was being used to make some very unscrupulous people rich. None of this was your fault. It happened because your parents were fooled into thinking that they needed to register your birth and get a birth certificate for you. So they applied for a birth certificate, not understanding that what would happen when they did. Well, then what happened? According to the local authority, they lost ownership of their baby, which is you. They allowed a straw man to be created. This is not something which they can be blamed for, as nobody told them it would or even could happen. Nor did anybody tell your parents what a straw man is or how it can be used against their baby. In actual fact, the registration is a contract which is, in reality, null and void because there was no full disclosure by the local authority, nor was there intent to contract on the part of your parents.
Or consent.
Yeah. The registration of the baby's birth certificate passes ownership of the baby to the local authority, and that alone allows the local authority to take the child away from the parents if they ever want to do that. And of course, that's where we get into these family courts where they'd walk in, they have a social worker that's had some sort of an education on social society, can walk in and make a decision that your kid has to come out of your house and go to the state because they don't approve of the way you operate in your life. And believe me, it can be ridiculous reasons for why they say you can't be a parent. They're going to take your children.
Can I just jump in the middle of that?
Yeah, please do.
Don't lose your place.
Anytime, yeah, I'm good.
I wanted to mention the fact, because it's really, really important. Common law applies to us, and I've said that 100 times, but it's so true. Dean just talked about you signing the birth certificate. The mother signs a birth certificate. Very innocent thing. You don't realize it. You're actually signing a certificate giving away a portion of your child to the state. So that's how they can come take away from you. Then you further do that when you sign them up for school. It says, are you a U.S. citizen? Please don't say that you are. You're not a U.S. citizen. You're a state national. Don't admit to being a U.S. citizen. But under common law, and a lot of people don't like hearing this, because, oh, you don't own your property. Well, I got news for you. When my children are minors, I own them. I buy their clothes, I buy their food, I pay for their schooling, and I pay for everything else that they wanted to do. I own them. They're my property. And I defy anybody to come forward and tell me they're not, because they'd have a fight on their hands. Not now because my kids are adults, but when they were younger. It's the same with you. It says in the law, the Constitution, no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property. Your children are your property. No one will deprive you of that without due process of law. And at the very least, that means a trial by jury. Not a jury trial, a trial by jury, by your peers. Now, under common law, things are supposed to happen differently. They've taken common law away from us, and we have these international admiralty courts of jurisdiction that, well, they're the law of the sea. And I don't know about you, but I'm on the land. I won't walk on water. I walk on the land. So the land jurisdiction applies to me, not the sea, which is what the government has created with your straw man. You're a corporation. They want to put you in sea, they can put you out to sea. It's up to them to do that. And it's all been done through deceit and deception. But the biggest thing I want to tell you is this. I'm guilty of it. Dean is. All of us. Our ignorance. We don't know. Once you start finding this stuff out, you get mad as hell. Say, wait a minute, I'm a corporate fiction in the eyes of the government. That's right. They can come shoot you, take you to jail, do what they want to do. And you can sit there and say, oh, he probably deserved it. Well, maybe you should look into it because they might be coming for you next. And who's going to stick up for you? Please pass this information along. You do your own checking on this, your own research. Don't take our word for anything, but I'm sure you'll find out it's true.
There is hope for common law jurisdiction because it is mandated that here in New Hampshire, by the New Hampshire Constitution, that the legislature provide common law courts for us, which we are currently involved in addressing up at the State House. Even today, we were up there. Anything you want to say about that?
Common law jurisdiction, so you recognize it, is called a court of record. They deal exclusively in common law. They have their own seal. The tribunal, which is the jury, is totally separate from the magistrate. And the way you can find this out is to go to U.S. versus Williams. It's a 1992 Supreme Court case. Read Section A. It's only about 2 pages. The most pertinent parts of that are about 2 pages. And you'll understand, and you'll be amazed. It's not written in legalese or anything fancy. It's pretty plain. Justice Scalia wrote that in 1992. And I think he was trying to throw the American people a parachute. I honestly do. But unfortunately, not a lot of us are looking into the legal cases to find that out. But please look into it. You can go online. You can Google it. You don't have to go to a law library. Google it on YouTube. It'll come up. YouTube or Google, either one, I guess. Anyway.
So the only ones officially stuck in Admiralty jurisdiction is the mermaid population, which...
Well, right now we're all mermaids because the government has put us there.
Yeah.
I don't see any web feet when I take my showers, but
yeah,
I guess they got me there.
So what is a strawman? A strawman is a fictitious legal entity created with the hope that as the child grows up, he will be fooled into believing that he or she is actually the strawman, which is most definitely not true, and pay all sorts of imaginary costs and liabilities which get attached to the strawman by con artists. How is a strawman created? Well, the mechanism involves that unnecessary birth certificate which the parents imagine is about and belongs to their baby, neither of which is actually true. If the baby has been named James and the family name is Martin, then you would expect the birth certificate to have the same James Martin printed on it. If that is what is printed on it, then all is well and it is a genuine birth certificate and nothing more. However, if any other name is there, then the document is not a birth certificate. Instead, it has created a straw man masquerading as James Martin. The alternative entries might be any of the following examples. So what the book lists here is James Martin in all caps letters. That is not the baby. That is the corporation that was created. And you might find other variants on that represent other corporations, as in, for instance, James T. Martin, all caps, with a T for the middle name. Or James Tom Martin, written out, all caps. That's not in this book, but I'm just pointing that out, that there are various legal entities that they create in that regard. Why create a straw man? The answer is in order to charge the straw man's imaginary costs and penalties and fool the human James Martin into paying those amounts. These imaginary charges include income tax, council tax, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, road tax, import tax, value-added tax, fuel levy, loan interest, bank charges, and anything else a full-time professional can think up, and are confident that you will not notice that you never agreed to pay and don't need to pay. So how do they do it? Part of it is they apply legalese. Legalese is a secret language invented to trick you. It uses English words but attaches secret meanings to those words with the sole intention of stopping you from believing that what they are saying to you has nothing to do with the normal meaning in the English language. Their purpose is to cheat you and rob you. For example, when they say, and we've used this before, I know we're being redundant here, but for example, they ask you, do you understand? The judge might ask you, do you understand the charges, or do you understand? In English, that means, do you comprehend what I'm saying to you? And the automatic response will be, well, yes, meaning I do comprehend what you're saying to me. Because these sneaky, underhanded people have changed the meaning in legalese to mean, do you stand under me, meaning, do you grant me authority over you so that you have to obey whatever I tell you to do. That's what's going on with legalese. They're changing the meaning.
And it's orchestrated by the bar.
Yes, the
And
Bar
if I could add
Association.
one thing,
Yeah, please
Dean.
do.
I do want to make, this is my opinion, by the way, but I can show you where to go to help support my contention here. Everything, including us, the people, is a corporation. The city you live in is a corporation. The court is a corporation. The Department of Transportation is a corporation. Everything is a corporation in this damn country. And what I'm telling you, is simply this. Corporations have been perverted by the bar. The bar is the enemy, not the lawyers or the attorneys out there, but the lawyers and the attorneys got to get off their ass and do something about the problem, because this country's going to hell in a handbasket. And you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And for the lawyers and attorneys out there who think, well, geez, I'm making good money. Good. Make good money and watch the country come down around your knees so your children and your grandchildren grow up as slaves, and see if you can stop it. Because it's getting to the point, or it is at the point, where it might not be able to be stopped. And if the lawyers and the attorneys don't come out of the woodwork and start helping the good people, we're going to be in the crapper. I'll say that. Corporations, in my mind, are the problem, and I can tell you where to look. Go to Walter Burien, the biggest game in town, on CAFRs, okay, C-A-F-R-S, apostrophe S, excuse me, Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. It's kind of boring, I'll be the first one to admit it, but find out about these corporations. A CAFR has to be done by law. The federal government instituted it in 1981 and mandated that all corporations have to file a CAFR. Well, New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, files a CAFR account because they're a corporation. Manchester, the city, another corporation. The county of Hillsborough, everything's a corporation. And behind every corporation stands a lawyer. I'm sorry, but it does. They're the ones that usually set these up. That's what's killing this country. There's no free enterprise. The corporations have a stranglehold on us. And that's the banking system that owns the bar, that owns the IRS. Get rid of those three organizations, and you'll experience real freedom.
All right, so
Sorry, I
what?
didn't mean to.
So no, that's fine. Now, what makes this situation even worse is the fact they will never tell you that they switched from English to legalese, and if that's not dishonest, underhanding, and unscrupulous, then I don't know what it is. If you answer the question believing that English is being spoken, and they pretend that you're contracting with them to become subordinate to them, whether or not is actually true is debatable, because that is effectively a verbal contract between you and them. And for any contract to be valid, there has to be full and open disclosure of all the terms of the contract, and then unreserved acceptance by both parties. And in these cases, that is most definitely not occurring. But what is the point of all this? Well, it is a maneuver intended to trick you into agreeing to represent your straw man. Why? Now that's the good question, and the answer takes a little bit of explaining to do. All humans are born equal, with complete freedom of choice and action. If you live in the same place as a lot of other people, then there are a few restrictions which have grown up by common consent over time. These restrictions are for your protection and the protection of other people living near you. The restrictions are called the law, more accurately, common law. And they are few in number and very easy to understand. They are: number 1, you must not injure or kill anyone. Number 2, you must not steal or damage things owned by somebody else. Number 3, you must be honest in your dealings and not swindle anyone. How simple is that? Now you know the law. And there's a big difference between lawful and legal. Law, common law, is simple, easy, and common sense understanding. Anyone can survive in common law. Anyone can thrive. Legalese and being legal is a quagmire of 2 different languages and a bunch of bullcrap lawyers making up all the rules as they go to deceive you, trick you, and steal from you, and that's what's happening. Go ahead.
The 2 maxims or principles in common law are very, very simple and easy to remember. The first one is, for every injury there must be a remedy. And I'd really like you to think about this because, well, I'll make my point. The second one is simply, if there is no victim, there is no crime. And the state cannot be the victim. Now, if for every injury there is a remedy, that means that the individual that was harmed is going to be restored. That does not happen today under the legal system that the bar and the attorneys have developed. The other one is, if there is no victim, there is no crime. Excuse me. That's quite simply the same thing. If there is no victim, there is no crime, so there is no victim. If you're smoking a marijuana cigarette, and I'm against drugs, by the way, but the fact of the matter is drugs are illegal now. And we've got, 100 people? No, 1,000 people over the past 2.5 years that died in the state of New Hampshire from heroin overdose. So the law isn't stopping this from happening. The so-called law, okay, the statutes. But right now, under the legal system that we have, there are victims. If you get robbed, how often do you get your money back from the victim? The lawyers get paid, even if they're a, what do they call it, a court-appointed attorney. They get paid. But you, as a victim, remain a victim. Do you want common law, or do you want the system that they've put in place and fooled us on for the past 100 years? One other thing I want to say for the people in New Hampshire, please, is that Article 4, Part 2 of the state constitution, I'm sorry, it's Article 5. Article 5, apologize for that, clearly states that the general court is hereby given and granted permission. That's by the people. There's no other higher authority than the people. We gave that to the general court and granted it to them to make statutes, codes, rules, laws, ordinances, directions, and instructions for the state. If you look up the word state, because the first time I read that, I said, well, I live in the state, so that applies to me. And then a friend of mine said, no, look up the definition of the word state. And he's right. You have to use it in the proper context. If I say Dean was in a crazed state of mind, you're not talking about any state other than the state of his mind, not the state of New Hampshire. The point being, if you look up state, it says clearly it's the government. It doesn't say the people. If it wanted to say the people, it would say the people. So statutes and codes that the legislature makes is for the government employees. We elect our legislature, to legislate the behavior of our employees in the government, not us. We, the people, are over them. Article 7 in the state constitution says, let me see. The people of this state, I'm sorry, I had a little hesitation there, but the people of this state have the sole and exclusive right. Now ask yourself, who has the sole and exclusive right? The people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state. And then it goes on to say, and do and forever hereafter. That's a long time. That means not only when it was written in 1784, but right now, 2017. The law has never been repealed. So if the people are the sole and exclusive Where do you get that we're underneath the legislature or the executive branch? These people are our public servants, and I don't mean that like they're not slaves to us, but they're doing our bidding in government for us. And the government's gotten out of hand. It's up to us to take them to task on that. So please, look up the law, not the statutes that belong to the government employees. And by the way, not only is the state of New Hampshire legislature part-time, that's because it doesn't require a full-time position, but our Congress is part-time. It says clearly in the United States Constitution, Congress shall meet no less than once per year. That was done in 1791 or 1789 when the Constitution was passed. 1789, because they realized we're not going to require these people to work full-time. We just want to make sure if there is an issue in the government they have to resolve, they show up at least once a year to take care of it. So they wrote it into the Constitution that way. These people have overreached their authority like you read about. And they're taking more and more money out of your pocket, growing the government till it's ridiculous. It's for world domination, though. Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent, but please check this stuff out. It's right there. It's not, we're not sitting here spewing this stuff. It's all carefully researched. I learned from a lot of people. Me and Dean are trying to share this stuff with you guys, so hopefully you'll share it with other people. We're all Americans, by the way.
So once again, the three restrictions that are incumbent upon you at birth is that you must not injure or kill anyone, you must not steal or damage things owned by someone else, and you must be honest in your dealings and not swindle anyone. These restrictions have resulted from hundreds of years of disputes having been dealt with through using common sense and the opinions of ordinary people. They are the only limitations on you, and if you don't want to abide by them, then you need to go to some isolated place and stay away from other people. Many people think that there are hundreds of other laws which they have to keep, but that is not so. So those other things are called statutes. I'm going to reiterate what Richie was just saying here. And keeping them is optional for you, the human, but they are not optional for you, the fictitious straw man. And that is why the people who benefit from those things, they want to persuade you to represent your straw man, and so become subject to all their invented restrictions and charges. If you knew that they were optional, would you agree to give most of your earnings away in taxes and similar charges, to pay to own a vehicle, pay to own a television set, pay to drive on the roads which were built with your money, be forced to join the armed services if you were told to do so, send an army which is supposed to represent you into another country to murder innocent people there? Were you ever told that these things are optional? If you agree to represent your straw man, then these things become binding on you. These are some of the statutes which politicians keep inventing in order to make you poor, make them and their friends rich, and keep you in position where you have to do everything they say, no matter how much that harms you and does away with your natural freedom and rights.
Yeah, just want to add something here on property and common law. One of the things you can ask yourself, especially those who have been affected by this, if you've had your children taken away and you believe it's unjust, or you lost your house, no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And that means a trial by jury, for one thing. It also means that if they come down for your house and they're searching for something, or they have to have a signed warrant. They can't just kick your door in like they've been doing. And these sheriffs who are coming down and exercising non-judicial foreclosures on your house are violating the law. Doesn't matter to me what they say. If they're ignorant enough not to know the law, just like we are, they're violating the law. They can be brought up on charges in a federal court under 18 U.S.C. Deprivation of rights under the color of law, 242. That's what should happen to these people. And believe me, I don't want to start a war with anybody. But our ignorance is what's going to take us all down. The people have to know this. The legislature has to know this. One more quick thing, Dean, if you just bear with me a minute.
Sure.
There was a state rep. I have ongoing conversations with him, and we talked about a bill of attainder. Bill of attainder is simply something that the legislature passes that deprives you of due process. And I said, a traffic ticket is just that. It's a bill of attainder. It's unconstitutional. That means it's against the law. He said, no, it's not. And I said, of course it is. A cop writes me a ticket. He says, here, it's $100, a speeding ticket, we'll say. And he says, you can either pay this or you can go into court and argue for it. So I go into the traffic court to argue it. The only problem is, when I walk into that traffic court, there is no jury box. If there's no jury box, who is going to hear? Where's the trial by jury that's going to hear my case? It doesn't exist, because that traffic court is not a court of record, a common law court that's mine. It's the remedy in law for the people. So we've been deprived of that. And of course, this representative said, well, I go down to the courthouse and I argue. And generally speaking, I get out of paying the ticket. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but when it says, no, the state shall not pass bills of attainder, what it means is I don't have to waste my time by getting a ticket from a cop, going down to court and arguing. You're not supposed to pass that particular statute because it doesn't apply to me. You're infringing upon my right to travel by doing that. Now, some people are going to say, well, you got to drive responsibly. Exactly, you do. You can't drive 100 in a 20 zone. You're going to kill somebody or yourself. We all have to act responsibly and be responsible for our actions. But the problem is the system right now doesn't make it that way. And that's the only point I wanted to make. A bill of attainder is a traffic ticket. Argue that in court and see how far it gets you. Because you're in your wrong jurisdiction when you go into court. It should be common law, but there's no common law courts.
So in 1933, in the bankruptcy reorganization of the United States Incorporated, the International Banking Cartel, the owners of the United States Incorporated, pledged your future earnings as collateral to refund their bankrupt country. So they said that they do so based on contracting with you, which means to say that when you sign for your driver's license, you're under contract, you contracted to submit to them. Your birth certificate, of course, is a contract. They're saying is a contract. But contracts require these four things. Full disclosure. You were not told that you were actually creating the credit with your wet ink signature. This is regarding banking. Equal consideration. So, in other words, they have to, there has to be a give and take. So you receive a product, they give you money for it, or you give them money for it. Lawful terms and conditions, that's part of a contract, and the wet ink signatures of both parties. So all of that has to be present in order for a contract to exist. So I want to jump a little bit into the whole police stealing thing, because these folks, the United States Incorporated, it's a corporation, and it's the non-federal Federal Reserve Bank is a private company set up in 1913, as is every court and every police force, and even Congress is a company, not a person. Just in case you're not aware of it, the purpose of any commercial, for-profit company or corporation is to make money for its owners and its shareholders, if there are any. The people who you think of as the government don't do anything that earns money. They instead take money from you, and their main job is to make sure that you don't realize that they are in the same position as, say, IBM or Sears or Target, which takes away millions of your money every year. So why all the pretense of there being a genuine government which you elect and who serves you? They don't want you to understand that they are just running a company which produces nothing of any worth, something like a betting shop where almost every customer loses money, and wake up to the fact that unlike what you have been told all your life, this is all optional. You don't need to play their rip-off game any longer unless you want to. And that brings up our ignorance. We simply are under a mass spell, a mass brainwashing, a mass con game, if you will, that leaves us continuing to play this game where
The other thing is we, the people, don't benefit by the corporate profits that they bring in because they've reduced us to a corporate fiction. So we don't take advantage of those profits they do.
And there are tremendous profits happening in government.
Trillions of dollars.
Evidenced by the CAFRs, and of course they're available. CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Every jurisdiction or every municipality that Richie was mentioning earlier, the fire department, the police department, the school system, the dog catcher, all those are corporations, and they are all for-profit corporations, and they're all privately owned, and you don't own them. You simply supply them with money. You're working every day to pay those corporations to exist. Why? To make a profit for the people that own them. Who owns them? Well, the chain of command goes right up to the Federal Reserve, the United States Incorporated, the IMF, the United Nations, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and it all goes back to the Crown in London, the Bank of London, and it's all the Rothschilds, Rockefellers who own those banks. So it's an international cartel. They're a crime syndicate, and they own you. They own you outright. There's a lot of information on the internet that will back this up if you just want to look it up, and it's a lot to comprehend, but it is the hard, cold truth of what's happening today. And yeah.
No, I just wanted to say this. I don't know how many people know David Wynn Miller. I can't say that I'm a fan or not a fan of his, but I watched his videos. He's a guy that's 67 years old, and he looks like he's 20. And he claims to have an IQ of 200. And all of that could be true. He made a statement one time that really flabbergasted me, and I just want to repeat it to you. You guys can check it out for yourself. I don't know if I believe it or not, but he said the International Monetary Fund has the number 23 followed by 213 zeros. That's how much money they have. Now, I don't know what the hell that is, because trillions, I think, goes up to, what, 12 figures? Not 213. But think about this, the about 7.5 billion people on planet Earth, they could all have $1 trillion, and it'd still be 180 zeros left with the IMF to function the world with. We're being ripped off. If this information is accurate, we're being ripped off really bad. I don't know how the Rothschilds can be worth 500 trillion or 40 trillion, whatever they're worth. And there are people on planet Earth living on $1 a day. And some people starving or not having clean water to drink. It's a disgrace. It's time for the people to stand up and put a stop to it. How much of this do we have to tolerate? It's total injustice. We have to do something. And I'm not talking about violence either, by the way. Stand up to your elected officials and tell them you're not going to take any more. You want them to do the job they're elected to do. Otherwise, they're going to be gone. Stop electing the same damn people.
So, in this wicked game that you are unfamiliar with and unaware of is being played and worked against you, there's the police force. Let's talk a little bit about the police. Years ago, a policeman was your friend and defender. Things have changed now that the police forces have become commercial organizations dedicated to producing a profit by taking money from you in the form of speeding fines, parking fines, and numerous other charges. It was stated on national TV recently that the last 13 years, 3,000 additional offenses have been invented. And of course, that's happening every day up in Concord here in New Hampshire. These guys are coming up with these bills that are just an enormous number of bills that are diving into your personal life to create offenses that you would have to pay for if you were found guilty of doing something that they thought you shouldn't be doing. As each individual police force is a commercial company, and in a way, like a McDonald's restaurant in strategy, it has no authority to enforce anything any more than a McDonald's has. The men and women who work under the banner of their local police force have two separate roles. When they take up their occupation, they take an oath of office, pledging to uphold the law. The oath and nothing else gives them the authority to act to enforce common law. That is, the few things which are listed near the start of the Legalese section above. In other words, the few things I listed, that's what they're there to enforce. That you don't harm anyone, that you don't betray or steal from anyone, swindle anyone, or destroy someone's property. It does not authorize them to do anything connected with so-called government statutes, so that they have been trained to use legalese to entrap uninformed members of the public. To be fair, it is highly likely that members of the police force are not aware of what they're doing and do not understand the difference between legal statutes, which are optional, and the lawful common law requirements, which apply to everyone and are not optional. Now, when we say that statutes are optional, well, it's a double, there's a catch-22 there. I mean, Supreme Court has said that they apply only to government employees, so it's been ruled on many times. However, when you have a police officer there with a gun and he's going to arrest you for not complying because you were speeding, you don't exactly have the option to not comply. Well, you do, but you'll end up in jail or be beaten or whatever the case is.
Yeah, the police are afraid that if they don't write the ticket, they're going to lose their job.
Absolutely.
And that's not the case at all.
But it's not the police that are making up these rules. It's the owners of the corporation. So the local police force, the Manchester Police, is a privately owned corporation, and somebody's dictating how these rules and things are going to apply, and it's not the members of the police force. Police
By the way, Dean, I just want to jump in here because the rules that you're referring to are a violation of law.
Exactly.
Okay? The cops shouldn't be enforcing statutes that don't apply to the people, but they do. And it's their ignorance that's causing this problem, because I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe the police know about it. And I worked in law enforcement, and back when I was in uniform, I was as ignorant as the cops are today. Maybe more so. I don't know. Maybe the cops even know what's going on. I have no way of knowing this. But it seems as if the people are ignorant, we don't know the law. The cops are ignorant, they're enforcing the law. And when you go in front of the judge, who I used to have respect for and have none now, they sit there like we're a cash cow. And rather than justice, the money. Fine you $100. Hold you in contempt of court, which by law they can't do, by the way. The only court that can hold you in contempt is a court of record, which doesn't exist anymore. They got away with them. Okay? And that's written into the law. That's not me talking. That's the law. But they have the guns. So if a judge holds you in contempt, the court officers will take you and put you in jail. They're violating the law, but who's going to stop them? We're all ignorant.
So simple again, common law, very simple. If in order for a crime to happen, there has to be a victim, and the state cannot be the victim. But a victim of a crime, of course, would be if I was to destroy Richie's property over there and I was found guilty, then the law requires that there must be a remedy. So the reason for having a jury of your peers and having a grand jury is so that people can dialogue, take a look at the situation, and assess what needs to happen. It is very simple and common. If you break the law and you injure someone, you have to provide the remedy to restore the injured party, whatever that may be. If there is no victim, there is no crime, and the state cannot be the victim. Today, our system's riddled with victims, and only the lawyers and judges make out in the deal. So in other words, when you go into a courtroom and they want to say that the state's the victim because you violated some state statute or code, who's benefiting from this crime? Well, it's not you. You're actually paying the money. So who's benefiting is the lawyer that's defending you, the lawyer that's prosecuting you, and the judge that's judging you, and the courtroom that's providing this charade.
All three are members of the bar.
They're all members of those. Yeah. First three are members of the bar, and they're all working against you to extract money from you because that's their system. They are an revenue extraction system that uses very convoluted language and convoluted statutes and codes by the thousands to manipulate you out of your money. And what do they have to do that with? Well, they have the guns. They have the police force. And, of course, the whole system is so sophisticated and convoluted that nobody's really awake to it. Everybody's compartmentalized. We're all ignorant. We're out working hard to raise our families or to live our lives, go out fishing, whatever we do. We just don't recognize, like frogs boiling in water, slowly boiling and boiling over time, we just don't recognize the onslaught of this criminal system that's taken over our freedoms, our liberties, and is completely destroying our way of life in this country. Our country is enormously restricted in its freedoms, even though we think we live in a free country, and in some ways we do. There is still some forms of capitalism here and free market to some degree, but for the most part, you are highly regulated, highly restricted, highly tracked, highly surveilled. Everything you do now is recorded on camera, recorded on sound, everything is being databased. There are dossiers on you at different levels and different agencies in the government. There are 60-some agencies that have guns that stockpile ammunition for the future. There's a lot going on that you're just not aware of, and it is all coming to a head, and it's coming to a head really soon. So it is imperative that people wake up and start involving themselves in local government, local issues, because that's where you go to take back control of your government and your people. And it just needs to be common people. We need to stand up together. It can't be the oddballs in society who seek power, leaving them the only ones who seek position in government. You end up with power-hungry, crazed people doing whatever they want and getting away with anything because we are not paying attention.
Sociopaths, is that what you're saying?
Do what?
Sociopaths.
Yeah,
re-elect.
sociopaths. Yeah, exactly. Go talk to some of them. And
I want to say something for you. If any of you have had a speeding ticket out there, it says in the United States Constitution, the supreme law of the land, if there is a law, in suits at common law where the value in controversy exceeds $20, a trial by jury is preserved. Well, the example I gave you before about getting a traffic ticket, if it's for $100 or $50, if it's more than $20, all right, in suits at common law, that applies. That law applies to you, if there is a law in this country. And when you go to court and I'm entitled to a trial by jury, by my peers, because the judge can't sit in judgment of me. If he does, that's called slavery. That man owns you. You're guilty. Pay the ticket. That's slavery. That's not freedom. And you have a right under the law to have a trial by jury. But they're not giving it to you because there is no jury box. They can't give it to you. This is further proof about our ignorance and how, and by the way, I'm not trying to sound condescending to anybody. Believe me, it took me a lifetime to learn this stuff. And it's only been the past 10 or 15 years I've looked into it and learned it. And I'm not an expert, but I'm trying to share whatever information we can, myself and Dean, with you people. Because we're all Americans here, and we need to save this country from the direction we're headed. Regardless of your affiliate, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, you're entitled to your opinion in this world, in this life. That's what makes us unique. And I respect that.
So in summary, we have a legal system that is imposing a fraudulent jurisdiction on you called Admiralty jurisdiction, and they're using statutes and codes by the thousands that do not actually apply to you, not lawfully anyway, and they are running you through a system that wasn't designed for we the people, was designed for international law in the sea. And so common law, they took away from us. Common law being we the people, common law gives us the remedy to restore victims in a situation, especially with our government. Now, we're out of time, Richie. I only got like 20 seconds if you want to add anything.
The only thing that I would like to add is, regardless of who you are, if you watch this show regularly, if you're a new watcher, share this with somebody, please. We're trying to help America understand what's going on, and that's all. If you understand, an educated citizenry can be very powerful.
Meet Your Strawman on Amazon, less than $5. Thank you for watching. You guys have a great week, and we'll tune in next week.
Thank you.